You walk into a store, walls of light, 100 screens, all showing the same sunset. But here's what they won't tell you. Half of them shouldn't even be there. Not because they're broken, because they were designed to confuse you. This year, the TV industry didn't just release new models, they released new problems. And if you're not paying attention, you'll buy one. So, let me show you what they're hiding. The illusion of progress. Every year, homes get smarter, voice assistants that listen, lights that follow your mood, TVs that remember what you like to watch. But somewhere between convenience and control, we stopped asking the right questions. We stopped asking, do I need this? Will this last? Or am I just being sold again? Because that's the thing about innovation. It doesn't always move forward. Sometimes it just moves sideways. Louder, brighter, shinier, but not better. And in 2026, that's exactly what happened. Akituon, the promise. Let me take you back. January, CES, Las Vegas. The biggest tech event of the year. Brands unveiling their flagship TVs like they're unveiling the future. 8K resolution, AI upscaling, micro LED backlighting, quantum dot layers so thin you could fold them like paper. The presentations were flawless. The demos were perfect. Every screen looked like a window into another world. And the crowds, they clapped, they filmed, they believed. But here's what no one saw. Behind the curtain, engineers were worried, not about the technology, about the timeline. Because what looks good in a controlled booth with perfect lighting and curated content doesn't always survive a living room. It doesn't survive your dog brushing past the stand, your toddler's juice box, your cousin who insists on maxing out the brightness during a family movie. Real life has variables, and some of these TVs weren't ready for them. Act 2, the cracks begin to show. By March, the first units started shipping. Unboxings flooded YouTube. Glowing reviews, stunning visuals, everything looked incredible for about 2 weeks. Then the forums started filling up, subtle at first. Anyone else noticing a faint line on the left side? My blacks look grayish after a few hours of use. Is it normal for the TV to restart on its own? And then it grew louder. Firmware updates that didn't fix the issue. Customer service reps reading from scripts. Warranty claims getting delayed. Replacement units arriving with the same problems. Because it wasn't user error, it was design error. And the worst part? Some of these issues were known before launch. But deadlines don't care about quality. They care about quarters, about earnings calls, about staying competitive. So the TVs shipped anyway. And you, the buyer, became the beta tester. Akit 3, the models to avoid. Let me be specific, because this isn't about fear, it's about clarity. Model Dira 1, the ultra-thin OLED gorgeous, sleek, 4mm thin, hangs on your wall like a piece of art. But here's the problem. It runs hot, too hot. The panel is so thin, there's barely any room for heat dissipation. And after 6 months of heavy use, users are reporting burn-in. Not just on static logos, on subtitles, on news tickers, on anything that stays in one spot too long. The company says it's within normal parameters, but normal doesn't mean acceptable. Not when you paid that much. Not when it's supposed to last a decade. Model number 2, the budget 8K for the price of yesterday's 4K. Sounds like a deal, right? Until you realize the processor can't keep up. It upscales content, but poorly. Motion looks jittery, colors look washed, and the so-called AI enhancement, it's guessing, badly. You're not getting 8K quality, you're getting 4K content stretched across 8K pixels, and it shows, especially in dark scenes, especially in fast action. This isn't an upgrade, it's a downgrade with better marketing. Model number 3, the gaming first display, 120 Hz refresh rate, variable refresh rate support, HDMI 2.1, low input lag. On paper, it's a gamer's dream, but in reality, the local dimming zones are too aggressive. Bright objects leave halos, dark scenes crush detail, and the auto brightness feature, designed to save energy, kicks in during gameplay. Mid-match, mid-cutscene, you can turn it off, but it resets after every firmware update, which happens often because they're still trying to fix what shouldn't have shipped broken. Model number 4, the smart TV with too many smarts. This one tries to do everything: streaming, voice control, fitness apps, video calls, a built-in camera that follows you around the room. But the interface is slow, the apps crash, the microphone picks up everything except your voice. And that camera? It's a privacy nightmare. Even when it's off, there's a faint indicator light. Blinking, watching. You didn't buy a TV. You bought a data collection device that happens to show Netflix. AK4. Why this keeps happening. You might be wondering, how does this keep happening? How do billion-dollar companies release products that fall apart in months? And the answer is uncomfortable, because it's not incompetence, it's strategy. Here's how it works. They release a new model every year, sometimes two. They market it as revolutionary. They price it just low enough to feel like a deal, but high enough to feel premium. And they count on you not returning it, because by the time the problems show up, you're past the return window, you're into warranty territory, where everything takes longer, where you're transferred between departments, where the burden of proof is on you. And most people, they don't fight it. They live with it. They turn down the brightness. They avoid certain apps. They convince themselves it's not that bad. And the company moves on to next year's model with the same issues, repackaged, renamed, resold. Act 5. What you actually need. Let's ground this. You don't need 8K, not yet. There's barely any 8K content. And even if there was, most people can't tell the difference from normal viewing distance. You don't need paper thin. You need durable. You don't need 50 smart features. You need 5 that actually work. Here's what matters: a good processor, accurate colors out of the box, reliable build quality, long-term software support, and a brand that stands behind the product when something goes wrong. That's it. Everything else is decoration. Act 6. The real cost. There's a scene I keep thinking about. A guy on Reddit. He saved for 8 months, bought one of the flagships I mentioned earlier, set it up in his new apartment, invited friends over for movie night. Halfway through the film, a vertical line appeared. Right down the center, bright green. He tried everything. Reboot, factory reset, different inputs. Nothing worked. He contacted support. They said send photos. He did. They said they'd escalate. Weeks passed, no callback. He went to the store. They said contact the manufacturer. He did. They said it's a panel defect, but the warranty requires him to ship the TV at his own expense and wait 4 to 6 weeks for a replacement. Maybe. He asked if he could just return it. They said no. Too much time had passed. So now he's stuck with a $2,000 screen he can't use and a lesson he didn't ask for. That's the real cost. Not just money, time, trust. The feeling that you were careful, you did research, and you still got burned. Act 7. The quiet truth. Here's something they don't say out loud. Planned obsolescence isn't always about the product breaking. Sometimes it's about the experience degrading. Slowly. Software updates that make the UI slower, apps that stop being supported, features that get moved behind paywalls. Your TV still works, but it doesn't feel good anymore. And that nagging feeling that maybe it's time for an upgrade, that's not an accident. That's the design. Act 8. a different kind of shopping. So what do? You slow down. You ignore the launch events. You wait 6 months. You read the user reviews, not the sponsored ones. You check forums. You ask real people. You buy from places with good return policies. And you ask yourself, do I need new or do I just want new? Because sometimes the TV you already have, the one that's 3 years old, a little dim, missing a smart feature or two, is still good enough. And good enough is wildly underrated. Aki T9, the ones that got it right. Not every 2026 TV is a disaster. Some brands actually listened. They delayed launches to fix issues. They kept last year's proven panel tech and just refined it. They didn't chase trends. They chased reliability. And those models? They're not the loudest. They're not in every ad. But they're in living rooms, still working, still trusted. A year from now, 2 years, 5. That's the difference between a product and a promise kept. ACTX. What I wish someone told me. Before I started reviewing TVs, I bought one. Expensive. New release. I was so excited. I didn't even open the box for 2 days. I just liked knowing it was there. When I finally set it up, it was beautiful. For a month, then a pixel died, then another. Then the smart hub started freezing. I contacted support. They were polite, but slow. By the time they agreed to replace it, I'd already bought a different one, from a different brand. I learned something that year. Excitement fades, but function doesn't. Buy for the long run, not the unboxing. Act Wingsin. The industry responds. In June, one of the major brands issued a recall. Quietly, no press release, just an email to registered users. We've identified a potential issue with a limited number of units. Limited? That word doing a lot of work. Turned out it was nearly 40,000 units. A power supply issue? Could overheat, could spark, could start a fire, and yet, most people never saw the email because they didn't register the product, or they used an old email, or the message went to spam. So those TVs are still out there, in living rooms, in bedrooms, waiting, and the brand? They moved on. New model, new campaign, new promises. Act Tout. What the reviewers won't say. Here's the uncomfortable part. A lot of early reviews were glowing. 5 stars. Best TV of the year. A must-buy. But those reviews were based on days of use, not months. They were based on demo units. Optimized. Calibrated. Babysat. The reviewers weren't lying. They just didn't know yet. And by the time they did, the campaign had moved on. The affiliate links were already live. The damage was done. I'm part of that system, and I'm trying to do it differently. That's why I wait. That's why I buy retail units. That's why I use them like you would, with kids around, with dust, with mistakes, because that's the real test. Act 3, the cycle. Every January, it starts again. New promises, new specs, new reasons to replace what you have. And every June, the complaints start. And every December, they go on sale. Because the next model's already coming. It's a cycle. And it only stops when we stop buying into it. Not by avoiding technology, but by demanding better. By refusing to accept good enough for launch. By supporting the brands that actually care and walking away from the ones that don't. I think about that sunset, the one on every display in the store. Perfect gradient, perfect color, perfect light. It's the same image, but every screen shows it differently. Some too bright, some too warm, some missing details in the shadows. And I realize it was never about the sunset. It was about the screen and whether it could be trusted to show you the truth, not just the highlight reel. That's what we've lost, somewhere between thin bezels and voice control. We stopped asking if it works. We only asked if it impresses, and impressive fades fast. But reliable? Reliable lasts. So before you buy that 2026 TV, ask the hard questions, read the fine print, wait for the real reviews, and remember, you're not buying a screen. You're buying years of evenings, of movies with people you love, of shows that make you laugh, of moments you didn't plan but won't forget, like the baby toy that rolled under the stand mid-scene, or the dog that barked at an animal on screen, or the coffee that almost spilled during the jump scare. That's what the TV is for, not specs, not status, presence. So choose presence, choose what lasts, and don't let them sell you the illusion. They want you confused, they want you overwhelmed, they want you to buy first and question later, but you're here, which means you're already asking smarter questions. Before you go, hit that subscribe button, because we don't just review, we expose. From the hype to the hidden failures to the tricks, brands hope you'll never question. So hit like, tap subscribe, and join thousands of smart shoppers who already know. Smart spending starts with asking smarter questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.